now, ladies and gentlemen, for Florida's #1 hockey podcast, the Cats and Bolts. 3, 2, 1.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Florida's favorite hockey show, and that is the producer who you all love, the very werewolfian-looking Ben Castro, right? Halloween's over, Ben. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 12 of the Cats and Bolts podcast, everybody. As Benny said, you can write it down, Ben. Hot Seat Episode. That's what we're calling it, the Hot Seat Episode, because we got about 8 topics that I came with. Sarina has some things that she would like to discuss as well. They might be in there. We didn't have a lot of prep going into this. Sarina Dawn, how are you doing today?
I'm very well. We had a great show last week. It was really good with Chikrin here. We had a great guest. We had no bell. It was fantastic.
Ben's already laughing. I get the inference. Rod wasn't here. We had one viewer, Ben, write in and say, Rod's away. It's fun.
What Ben was that?
Ben Cobbs.
Oh,
I can stay away if you want. Yeah, not that Ben, but anyways, no, somebody needs to bring a little order to what's going on here and have some direction. So that's what we do here. Brought to you by Beach House Pompano and Boresco. It's when we have guests. Oh, did you give Jeff Chikrin his gift cards from Beach House?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, of course not. So that's what I do. I don't mind saying she's the beauty, but somebody has to be the brains.
The fact that we didn't get a picture is still pissing Rod off. He had to go dig up old pictures to post for our thing. I actually felt bad. It was I did, actually. Ben,
you
like,
don't feel bad. Stop lying.
Did you get a picture?
A minute into the show, she's lying already. Yeah, okay, can we get down to business and quit Mickey Mousing? Other than to say promotional consideration is brought to you by Beach House Pompano and Boresco. I don't even know what promotional consideration is.
Wasn't that from The Price is Right?
Every 80s show.
Yeah, it was like promotional consideration brought to you by.
I feel like Wheel of Fortune for sure, and probably Family Feud. Okay, when I say the hot seat episode, I mean it. We have November 19th. Write it down. The first coach firing in the National Hockey League this year was November 19th. It was Jim Montgomery of the Boston Bruins. They have an 8-9-3 record, Sarina, and I was looking at this. They're right on the cusp of the playoffs. They're tied for the final playoff spot. Now, not a lot of people really had Jim Montgomery as the first guy to be fired. I did. Are you surprised that he was the first?
Not considering the way the Bruins season has started. I don't really think, like I've been maintaining the whole time, I don't think anybody needs to be worried about the Bruins. But based on the way everything's gone for them in the first couple months of the season, realistically, yeah, I'm not surprised.
We're going to, listen, follow this show and listen, because this is what the hockey people are talking about, is what we talk about on the show. And I'll give you an example. In the press box at American Bank Arena recently at a game, I said, who do you think will be the first coach firing? I can't really remember who I was talking to. I got an idea, but it was some hockey guy. And he goes, whichever GM's feeling the most pressure from ownership. Remember, we talked about that, I think, when I got home. And I think that's why I settled on Boston, because I'm looking at Don Sweeney. It's Boston, man. People are saying, how come they keep firing coaches? How come they can't get it together? How come they can't win in the playoffs? There's a lot of pressure there. And I think out of all these teams, Detroit, Pittsburgh, Nashville, there's pressure everywhere. But Boston, they got a lot of pressure. For American teams, probably the most. What do you think?
Yes, I would say probably, because they're always pretty good. So when they have a season like this season where they didn't come out of the chute super hot and everybody's just kind of waiting for something to happen. Let's be real, though. This is by far not a catastrophic start to their season. It's not like they're, what did you say, 8-9-1?
8-9-3.
Okay. They're almost at 500. Right? So obviously they want to be in a better position, but it's not something that I don't think they should be super concerned about right now. Does it warrant firing a head coach? Sure. Look at Edmonton last year when they were 3-95-2, whatever the hell they were, and they fired their head coach. Everything started to turn around. Just like when you pull a goaltender. Sometimes it's not about the goaltender himself. It's just about shaking things up, and I'm pretty sure that that's what they're trying to do in Boston.
And it's the goalie that looks bad, and it's the coach that looks bad, like Jim Montgomery's a bad coach. But his last game was a 5-1 loss to Columbus Monday night, and I didn't watch the game, but the hockey people are saying that was a coach firing game. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he's got to go. This proves it. Now, we move on to point two. We could sit on this forever who's next? Who legitimately is next? One thing I've noticed, I've looked up these BetMGM odds for coach firing. They're way out to lunch, which, by the way, they didn't even have Jim Montgomery in the top 5 all year. And that was my guy that I thought. So, you know what they're saying is Detroit and Pittsburgh.
I don't know what they would expect out of Detroit and Pittsburgh. I don't know. I look at a team like Buffalo. Buffalo has a lot of young, good players, and it's like, where's the disconnect there? Is it the coach? I don't know. Detroit, I think that Detroit thinks they should be in a better position than what they are. Like, as an organization, I think they feel like, okay, it's time for us to get picking it up. So, but Pittsburgh, I mean, come on. Pittsburgh can't. They're talking about trading Malkin and this and that, and I don't know. Who knows it'll be. These are, if the betting people can't get it right, nobody else is going to.
Yeah, that's a very good point. But look at Detroit and Pittsburgh. They're the two teams that have won the most Stanley Cups in the last 25 years. They're used to winning. So Yzerman's there in Detroit. They spent all this money on free agents. Cam Talbot in goal, Vladimir Tarasenko, Patrick Kane last year. Why aren't we winning? Right? And in Pittsburgh, we're just used to winning, even though they've missed the playoffs the last 2 years. All it is they're used to it, and they're not there. So you ask, what's the deal? It's the expectations.
Well, you don't have to tell me. I get that wholeheartedly. And I think that's going back to the conversation of, are the Tampa Bay Lightning going to make the playoffs? Everybody's like, nope, not going to, nope.
No, that was just me. So.
It's the expectation of, well, they won all these games. But going back to Detroit, you talk about the pickups that they made. To be totally honest, Cam Talbot has not been a stellar goaltender his entire career. So as an Oiler fan, I watched him tank it, and everybody was happy to get rid of him. And he played better after he left Edmonton, but he's played decent in Detroit, but he's not going to be their savior. Patrick Kane, come on. I was the first person that said the Rangers were stupid for signing him, and then why would Detroit... Guy, he's had double hip surgery. I mean, I'm not saying he can't be effective, but they put a lot of stock into guys that are not in the prime of their career. And then they have younger guys coming up and a captain who's soft. That's just my opinion. He's always injured. This is a huge disconnect there.
To point 3, to be honest, if we're talking about who is next, I said the odds makers are saying it's Detroit and Pittsburgh. I'll tell you right now, I think it's Nashville. Their second worst record in the NHL. Only Chicago's worse. And my question to you is, why do you think Barry Trotz, the general manager, has not fired former Panthers coach Andrew Burnett yet?
Ooh, perfect. This is my point about Detroit. Detroit is expecting a lot with not a lot of great players. Nashville is expecting a lot because they do have a lot of great players. I think that Barry Trotz knows that it's just a matter of time before they start playing well together. This is a team of guys that have never played together. It's like I've been saying here. They got to bring it up. They got to get it going together. It will click. And I think Barry Trotz is going, okay, what is my path of least resistance here? I've got good players. These guys are professionals. At this point, is it really Andrew Burnett's fault that it's not clicking? It's always the coach's fault, right? I get that. It always falls back on the coach. But I think there's probably been some conversations behind closed doors about what's really going on here. So maybe Andrew Burnett will get dusted, but I don't disagree with you. I do think that it's a little odd that he hasn't gotten tanked yet, but Barry Trotz is smart. I trust him.
So do I, but the way to look at that in my mind is, there's 2 ways to look at it, actually. Trotzy, this is his first GM job. So he knows, you're right, he knows exactly what's going on. He does, if nobody else does, Barry Trotz does. Maybe he's not firing Andrew Burnett because Trotzy's been fired and doesn't, you know what I mean? And in his mind, unfairly. He doesn't want to be the guy to gun a coach unfairly.
1,000% that is the case. Barry Trotz, when you've coached in the NHL and you've lost and you've been fired and you've won a Stanley Cup and you've done all the things, that just makes you a different general manager. You compare a Barry Trotz to, let's say, Bill Zito, who didn't coach, didn't win a Stanley Cup, just for comparison's sake, just 2 completely different guys. They just got to make sure that it clicks. But I mean, Barry Trotz, 100%, he's a go-to guy.
I do want to come back on the Zito thing in a moment for the way that he runs the team. But think about Barry Trotz. This won't mean a lot to our American viewers. It'll mean a lot to our Canadian viewers. Winnipegger, former Notre Dame Hound and captain of the Regina Pats. And every single time we see him, he says something funny. The last time Nashville was here, he comes up into the press box, and I really dearly love. If I couldn't get into the press box, I probably wouldn't go to the games because it's where things happen. Barry Trotz gets off the elevator. I'm standing there. He walks right up, sticks his hand out. And I'm like, oh, he's going to say something. Where can I get a coffee?
That's totally Barry Trotz. Just a farm boy. Just lead me to the promised land.
Where can I get a coffee? And in Estero last year, she was there. We're walking down the hallway. Can I tell this? I think I've said it on this show before. He walks into the women's washroom, turns around, whoop, walks right out. I'm like, you don't want to go in there? And he goes, great way to meet women, though.
For the record, it wasn't a full bathroom. It was a one. It was
a one-seater. Yeah. It was a one-seater. Just telling you, something funny happens.
I wonder how he figured that out.
No urinal. It's a guy thing. There's no urinal. What am I doing in here? There's no urinal. That's how we know.
I did see a man.
You wouldn't know.
Do a loop in an airport. You know when you can go in one side and go around the other? I came out of the stall and a man was pulling a suitcase and he's like, don't mind me. And he just did a full lap and walked right back out.
I don't know what's worse. I was in the airport in Detroit sitting on the toilet in the bathroom and I heard high heels tick, 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 into the bathroom. I'm like, oh my God. Where are you going to go at that point? Okay. I will say this about Bill Zito. Although he wasn't a head coach like Barry Trotz, he's a blue-collar guy. If we didn't know that before, we know it now. He worked in the Brewers clubhouse as a teen. And I will never forget this. Owners need to, I think, pay attention to that comment that was made anonymously by an NHL executive in the Athletic, the poll of what are the best front offices. One executive anonymously said, Bill Zito runs the team the way we would all run the team if we could. I.e., signs guys early, signs them to extensions, treats people well. Unlike Boston, who waited until the day before almost the regular season started before they signed their goalie. Happens in the NFL all the time. Bill Zito's treating people well, thinking ahead, not a last-minute guy. That's my take on why they're winning. Now, we're getting to all the good points early, Ben. I want her take on this. That's why I write this down. Alex Ovechkin, the grade 8, is 26 goals away from tying Wayne Gretzky's all-time NHL goals record. Her guy, Wayne. How are you going to feel when it happens?
I won't feel. I better be in a coma when that happens. There was nobody that was happier than me when I saw him go down the other night.
Ew!
I was literally like, someone needs to Bobby Clark him. Let me tell you why. He's got 15 goals. The fastest 15 goals he's ever scored in his entire career is this season. I saw him, what did we see him loaf the last 3 years? He was an absolute plug last year when we watched him play here. I was embarrassed for him. I was disappointed. I'm like, a guy like that should never win the scoring rate, win the most goals. And that's just, by the way, regular season goals. That's like one of the 95 goal records that are out there. But you got it, guy, give me a break. He was an embarrassment last year. And now all of a sudden he's coming out flying. I don't know. I had so much respect for Ovi until I watched him play live last year. And everything I could think was, this guy has a chance to do this. He's just loafing it.
If I can impart something, because we don't all know everything, but I had your boy Alan May on my daytime talk show the other day, and he said, I didn't know this. And if Alan is the television analyst, Monumental TV in Washington, he's the Capitals analyst. He said that Ovi was going through the loss of his dad last year, and he put on a bunch of weight, and everybody said, oh, he's given up. And I guess he grieved, got through that. July 1st, he committed to training, and he's a completely different player this year. I know that doesn't change any of how you feel about him. I saw him screwing the pooch, too. I saw it. He's a different player this year.
He absolutely is. He probably went through some, physical training in the offseason. But let me ask you this. If I, at my job, decided to part-time it, but still took a spot from somebody else, I would get fired. I don't get to go to my job and part-time it because I'm grieving or I'm this or I gained weight or I did that. Too bad.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm just telling you what happened.
I mean, right. And you wanted my opinion, so you're getting it. If you're going to do that and you need to take the time to grieve or whatever you need to do, Understandable, no doubt. But can you agree that he was an absolute embarrassment on the ice?
You know what's funny, though? I've thought for years that he doesn't give a full effort. Last year it was real bad, and even people with the team said he looked the size of a fridge, like he ballooned. So whatever. We all grieve in our own way. But here's the thing. I saw him play here in Florida in 2015, and I actually called my buddy Ross Mahoney with the Capitals. He's the assistant GM, and said, "What? This guy's your captain? I mean, he's not even trying out there." But the thing is, well, I guess I can compare Alex Ovechkin and Wayne Gretzky because they're in the same ballpark for goals. Wayne didn't go 100% either. No, he didn't have to. But imagine if Gretzky and Ovechkin both went 100% all the time. It's not their game. Wayne did not go 100% all the time. He did not have to. And he's the all-time points leader.
He didn't have to, but he also wasn't the fastest guy on the ice. Ovi, when he wants to be, is a bull in a china shop. There's nobody that's going to catch or stop him when he is full tilt.
Wayne didn't shortchange his team either. We're talking about different thing. Wayne did not come across center ice. That was on his own side. He just didn't. But that's the way the game was played then.
Right. There was a red line.
So
there was
you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, 100%. Like you said, he didn't have to. It was a completely different game back then.
Completely. It's just odd. Here's my thing, because people ask me about how do you feel. I was in Vancouver on the weekend at the Canadian Football League Championship, but I went to an NHL game, Canucks and Blackhawks, and somebody said, a fan, we got talking. He goes, "How would you feel if Ovechkin ties Gretzky?" And I said, "If he does, he will have earned it. Whatever. I don't hold anything against him. Whether I'm not anti-Russian, I'm not anti-anything. It's too exhausting." She's upset because she doesn't want to see Wayne's record go down. Am I right?
Yeah,
Period.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's all. It's not now. So moving on,
it's not like by the way, it's not like he's cheating or anything.
No. As a matter of fact, he's also not firing a million empty netters either, which I thought he might have done.
He's gotten a few.
Yes, he has, but he's earning it. I'm sure Wayne had some empty netters too.
Wayne had of course.
Wayne's 39th and 50 was into an empty net, was it not?
No, yeah. Well, Wayne's 50th and 39th.
Or whatever. You know what I mean.
Yeah. That will never be broken.
50 goals in 39
Never.
games? Never's a long time, Sarina.
No, not going to happen. He scored 92 goals, I think it was that year.
And that, which is also a record.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the most impressive record? That's my next point. Goals. It's going to be Ovi's. Points is still Wayne, 28-57. All-time games played, 1779. Patrick Marleau. If I have that right. I think it's 1779. All-time wins by a goalie. Martin Brodeur, 691 wins. That's a big deal. An old-timer said to me, no, it's Glenn Hall, 502 consecutive games started in goal without a mask. Tiger Williams, penalty minute record. They're all great.
There are a lot of really good records out there, but I think it's just being an Oilers fan, that's the one thing that they always talked about. Wayne always said that his favorite record and the hardest one that was going to be able to beat was 50 goals in 39 games. And I really feel like that is my favorite Gretzky record. Yes. I do like the 92 goals in one season, but there's something about that 50 and 39. And to be perfectly honest, the Habs were always, Maurice Richard had 50 goals and whatever. And, Maurice Richard was their God, just like Wayne. I get it. But it's not even close. And there's just so many records that Wayne holds that are just so impressive. But yeah, Glenn Hall playing 500 games in a row but guys are softer now than they were back then. Goaltenders played every single game, but there were not 84 or whatever games in a season all the time. So it's a little different, but yeah, I think that Glenn Hall record or whatever you want to call it's pretty good too.
Keep talking if you want. I'm sending Ben the picture of you and Wayne. This was before the restraining order was filed. It's coming to the Ben Castro account.
Can you send it to the mini?
Oh, yeah, I just did. Okay. I know we've shown it on the show before, but I want to say it again. This is the day we got married, wasn't it?
No, 2 days later.
Okay. Pretty good wedding gift, though.
Yes, I love how you take credit for all of this. It's all Rod.
Somebody has to. Let me know when you're ready.
Nobody has to take credit for the fact that I went on my own
and stalked
and asked the security person if I could meet him. Nobody's taking credit for that other than this kid. So, granted, I don't care. I'll talk to anybody.
That's the two of them with the great Gretzky.
Still looks so good in blue. Look at him.
He does. He looks pretty happy there,
He's
man.
just the greatest person to ever live.
Are we done on that? You said 50 and 39.
I like that one.
All these things are, again, they're all great. I want to say it's 1779. It's in my column today in the South Florida Tribune. Pick up a copy. This exact topic. And the numbers are in there. I just rattled off so many numbers, I can't remember them all. But games played's pretty cool. And the top two guys are from Saskatchewan, where we're from. Patrick Marleau and Gordie Howe.
All the best ones are.
Mm-hmm. Are you ready to move on?
Yes.
Point 6. We're really knocking them off here. The Florida Panthers and Winnipeg Jets split a pair of games this week in a Stanley Cup final preview. I'm calling it that. Not a lot of other people were. Here Saturday night in Sunrise, she went to the game. The Panthers blanked the Jets 5-0. You knew the Jets were going to come out flying on Tuesday in their return engagement, and they did. It was a far closer game than the 6-3 score for Winnipeg. There was 2 empty net goals scored by Morgan Barron, but I don't know about Saturday, but Tuesday was an unbelievable game. I watched it on Scripps Sports.
The game on Saturday here was good. I really didn't think, maybe at the end it was a 5-0 score, but for it to be a 5-0 game was a little shocking because the first period was really good. And I asked Randy Moeller at the first intermission, I was like, is this the best that you've seen the Panthers play this year? They'll play up to, and because Winnipeg flies. And he's like, well, he said, probably when they played in New York against the Rangers was the best game he saw them play, but he agreed that this was a very good game. And talking to Dale Talon before the game, Dale was like, well, they haven't been the same since they came back from Finland. You know, you send them away in the middle of the season. I was like, yeah, precisely my point. But he's like, oh, they get back together. And so that was a really good game. I feel like, I said this to you earlier today even, I feel like the Panthers can handle speed a lot better this year than they did last year. That's how I feel. And I don't know, maybe they know the style Winnipeg plays. Winnipeg is just so fast, so quick, so a lot of things. They've got pretty decent defensemen, really strong couple lines up front. And there were a couple times that I noticed in the first period, though, that Winnipeg had their fourth line stuck out on the ice. They had their fourth line, I think Iafalo's on that fourth line, just getting drilled, and they couldn't get off the ice. And then they would get fluky. You know, the puck would go off a Panther and into the net, or go off somebody and right onto Barkov's stick. So it wasn't really a fight. Florida deserved to win that game, but I think it was a little closer than it looked.
It's funny how things change, though. And oh, my God, if it was a Stanley Cup final, she wouldn't like that. I would.
I would love that.
Would you? It would mean your Oilers weren't in it, but you know what I mean.
Well,
if it wasn't the
listen,
Oilers.
the dream is gone. I'm fucking done with that shit. I can't even watch anymore.
Okay. As I was saying then.
Hey, there's nothing like watching a Stanley Cup final when you don't have any skin in the game, because it's a lot different when you do.
Less stressful, yeah. Well, here's the thing, because she had gone to bed by the time the Winnipeg game was on Tuesday night. I don't know what happened Saturday night. I watched the first period in Vancouver, and that was it, of this game here. But I watched the whole game in Winnipeg, and when the Jets got going, I don't know what they changed, Sarina, to get free, but when they were coming down the ice in the Panthers D and got in the zone, you could see in the Panthers defenseman eyes, they're like, oh my God. Mm-hmm. They didn't know how to handle it. By playoff time, they will have a system to do that. Or, you know, I don't think they need to make any changes personnel-wise, but they were caught flat-footed Tuesday night against Winnipeg.
I'm not surprised. You know, it does happen. I feel like they played a pretty decent game here the other night. I felt like they were able to handle Winnipeg. The one thing the Panthers do is they just get in the way. They know where they need to be, so they just get in the way. And that's what they were doing the other night here, and it was a little different. Every time Winnipeg tried to get something going, boom, they would turn the puck over because the Panthers forced them to turn the puck over. Winnipeg likes to keep that puck going up center ice, and they move it very well up the ice and along the boards. Winnipeg just is so good. It's not going to click all the time, but watching Kyle Connor and, oh my God, those guys are just so talented.
Fun to watch in the regular season. They don't last too long in the playoffs.
If they make it.
If they make it. They'll make it.
We're still a long way away, people.
Speaking of, for the Tampa Bay Lightning fans, wake up. We're going to talk about your team right now. They have points in 4 straight games. They've won 3 in a row. They came back to win in Pittsburgh, 3-2 in overtime Tuesday night. They're third place in the Atlantic Division. I still think they're going to miss the playoffs unless they make some moves at the deadline to augment, which they probably will. But talk about a streaky team. They lost 4 in a row coming into November. Now they've got points in 4 straight. That's consistent, I guess. I think everybody would like them to be a little more stable. What do you think?
I'm sure that's probably part of it. But if you look at Tampa, they don't really have a lot of high point getters like they have in the past. They were putting up a lot of points, like Sergachev and all those guys were putting up points. And that's not really the case this year. But it's okay because they have a core group of guys that are still playing really well and still working really hard. I think back to when the LA Kings won their first Stanley Cup. They didn't necessarily have a whole bunch of superstars on the team, but they were playing well enough to win the Stanley Cup. And Tampa's just, they're playing well. Sure, they lose 4 or whatever, but it's like...
They know how to win, but they were also missing Braden Point through those 4 games. He's
unbelievable when he wants to be. He's also hit and miss when he plays.
Mostly hit.
Yeah.
No, not a lot of miss. But anyways, Tampa Bay, I'm just buckled in. It's just fun how we discussed a couple weeks ago, are they in a rebuild? To me, a rebuild is you go right off the cliff. Thelma and Louise. And you get a number 1 draft pick, and you know what I mean? And they're nowhere near that.
No.
So that's why I don't think reloading is what I think they'll do at the trade deadline. You know?
They'll do something.
They'll do
have
something.
to.
Yeah. If they're right on that line, which is, they're not even right on that line right now. They're 3rd in the Atlantic. Boston's right on that line.
But you know, let's go back to this. Look at the Panthers a couple of years ago. Nobody expected them to be in the Stanley Cup final. They were playing similarly to the way Tampa is. They didn't make a lot of big moves at the deadline, and everybody's like, wow, we were kind of expecting them to do stuff, and they didn't. So I think a lot of people were concerned about what was going to happen, and look what they did. Not saying Tampa's going to do that, but Florida didn't make big changes. And that just goes to speak for Bill Zito saying, hey, I'm confident with my guys.
In 2023, Zito made none. Last year, he made a lot.
So he made 0 the year before?
None. He was one of the few teams. I think they're the only team that didn't do anything and ended up going to the Stanley Cup. But last year they got Okposo, they got Tarasenko, they got. And it worked. I thought it was too much. Too many moves. But she talks about the playoffs. Have you been reading my diary? That was my next point.
I don't talk about the playoffs. Playoffs are like 6 months away.
Nah, but I think we said if they're going to be in contention. Now listen to this. We'll always be Canadian citizens. And there is this phrase, she gets a real bang out of it. U.S. Thanksgiving.
In other words, Thanksgiving.
Yeah, in Canada, we call it U.S. Thanksgiving because we have a Thanksgiving. It's October 9th weekend. Whatever, like the second weekend of October. You guys have yours. A month and a half later, 6 weeks later. There's a stat that gets kicked around. And let's be honest, most of the main NHL media is in Toronto. They're Canadian. So that phrase, U.S. Thanksgiving, gets kicked around a lot in Canada. And the stat is, if you are in a playoff spot on U.S. Thanksgiving, 80% of those teams that are in the playoffs will make the playoffs on U.S. Thanksgiving, which is next Thursday, right? So all I'm going to say about that is, do you subscribe to that? Because Florida really, in that 2023 season, they were out of a playoff spot at U.S. Thanksgiving.
We talked about this last year, and I was like, we need to go back and find the episode because Edmonton was tanking hard. And I was like, they're going to make the playoffs. There were a lot of teams that I think were out of contention last year that we talked about. I'm like, no, they're going to be fine. But this year, I feel like this year's not quite as unpredictable as last year was. Last year was bizarre. There were teams it was all over the place. It was really strange last year.
Well, I don't like analytics. I mean, we've talked about Bill Lindsay. Oh my God, he's Mr. Analytic, which is fine. I mean, it's just not really my thing. Because what do the stats mean? Well, I said Florida came from the back of the pack to go to the Stanley Cup. They bucked that trend. The Oilers were not in a playoff spot last year, and they went all the way to the Stanley Cup final. Same thing. Yet 80% of the teams do. And the reason I don't like it is there was a coach last week at the Grey Cup, which is Canada's Super Bowl. He said he was a rookie coach last year. He goes, I wish I hadn't gone as much by the analytics and more with my gut. He coached his team based on analytics, but he was a rookie head coach. He ended up being the division coach of the year. So he's forgiven for doing that. My point is, what do the stats mean? Like, I'm ready to put a gun in my mouth when I see shot attempts and all these stupid stats I see on the broadcast. What the hell is a shot attempt?
It's like, shot attempt has to be the stupidest statistic on the planet. It's like, it'll be like Florida was out shooting Winnipeg 7-3, but the shot attempts were like 95-75. I'm like, this is so stupid. Who cares? Who cares if the shot doesn't go on the net? Even if it hits the friggin' post, it's not a shot because you don't have an opportunity to score. So who cares? Does it make you feel good about yourself that your team had more shot attempts? It's like people will come to me and be like, oh, well, yeah, but they outshot them. Who gives a shit? They still lost.
Yeah.
I don't care what the shots are. Just like the shot attempts. It's the participation medal for the kids that never win. Who cares?
Well, here's the thing. It's not changing the game. And you people have watched this show
Ding, ding.
enough. You know how much we love Bill Lindsay. He's family. But pretend this is Bill's iPad. He comes running up in between periods with his glasses down on his nose.
Yeah, but when Bill comes in with stats, he's like bringing up legit stats about a player.
Yes.
Because he'll be like, hey, did you know that this player did this? And I'm like, dang, that's actually super interesting.
Yeah, but all that is they're just tracking what's going on in the game. People have been doing it for 100 years. My one thing is Bill's like, the Panthers dump it in more than any other team in the NHL. They used to have scouting departments to do that would tell you that. Now you can just press a button and it comes up from the NHL. That's all. It's not anything new.
Here's the thing. Bill knows the game better than anybody and knows how to deliver it better than anybody as a broadcaster. So when he does the color, it's a nice tool for him. What it is, though, is, in my opinion, it dumbs the game down to all the fans who have no idea, south of the border, anything about the actual game itself. So I never saw shot attempts until I moved to the U.S. or recently, I guess. I don't know. It's just not something that we ever had to think about.
Yeah, I don't care so much about what the fans know or don't know. It's when the media uses it as a crutch, because I read these game stories and stuff with stats. And I'm like, I can read the damn score sheet myself. Tell me the stories. What were the key moments?
But this is, okay, here we go. We're going in on this. It's happening. The people who cover the teams down here don't know shit about hockey. So they need the stats to report it to the people who don't know shit about hockey. How are you going to explain, if you had a guy like Bill Lindsay try to explain what happened in a game to somebody on the street here, they would be speaking a different language. They had to come up with things because the people that are covering don't know the game of hockey. They've never played it a day in their life. They've never watched it until maybe the last 5 years, and you're going to expect them to know everything about it? No, they had to come up with that shit so it made sense to people.
Let me ask you this. Are the stats as ridiculous in baseball? You're the baseball girl.
Stats are way more ridiculous in baseball. However, baseball analysts that use the stats typically have a better team, and because baseball is not a back. You get your chance to play offense, and then you have to play defense. Everybody gets a fair chance all the time to play offense or defense. Hockey's different. It can turn at the drop of a hat. That's why statistics work better in baseball than they do in hockey.
Gotcha. I just know baseball is huge in stats, and I'm not as big a baseball person as she is, and I just liked hockey before it was a nerd's errand, is all I'll say. And that's all my points. Benny, are we at 35 minutes-ish? Yeah, we're done. We're out. Okay,
Well,
thank you.
yeah, but let's...
What? Let's not end on that note, apparently.
Hold on.
What?
We have not talked about the fact that Connor McDavid is the 4th fastest player to score 1,000 points in the
I
National
didn't
Hockey
know
League.
you wanted to. I asked you what you wanted to talk about. You didn't say McJesus.
I would always want to talk about that.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm reading minds now is a specialty of mine.
This is big news, people. Okay, that is an impressive stat. Here's another, going back to the impressive stat thing. I don't know if this would be considered like I guess it's a record, but Wayne Gretzky was the first and technically second fastest player to 1,000 points. I mean, are you kidding?
I sent you that stat.
1,000 people sent me that stat. It's so impressive.
Okay, so and he counts first, second?
No.
He doesn't?
He's first. Mario was second. Who the hell was third? It just blanked me.
Sid?
No. Who the hell was third? Good God.
Connor McDavid
was
fourth fastest player to hit 1,000 points in the NHL. Bravo. I'm not as big of Oiler.
Whoa.
I'm not as big of Oiler. Well,
it has nothing to do.
I asked you earlier. I gave the opportunity. What's the most impressive stat? You didn't even bring it up.
I'm not a big Oiler fan, so I don't care. That's extremely impressive in this day and age for a player to get 1,000 points that quickly. Nobody else is even close to that. This is a completely different style of game. No one's even close to how fast McDavid got 1,000. Not even close. It's very impressive to do that.
Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, and Mike Bossy.
Mike Bossy, that's it. Yes.
Boss.
Out of the top 10, there's only 2 that aren't Canadian.
Yeah. Well, like I say,
it's so impressive, the amount of points.
I get tired of the McDavid stuff. I'm getting tired of the Ovi talk already. No, I'm serious. I'm not. This is not being a hater here, but it's like this Ovi stuff. You understand? I feel like it's going to be when he comes back from injury, whenever that is, it's going to be a daily thing now. Are you going to be able to handle it?
I mean, it is what it is. It's like it doesn't take away from Wayne being the greatest player of all time.
It's like the 90s with McGuire and Sosa when they would cut into programming in the Three's Company to show Mark McGuire at the plate when he was chasing the record. Okay. Now we're done. Anything else you want to spring on me?
Guess not, because Rod's not an Oiler fan and he's sick of McDavid, so we might as well sign off.
We finally got it through to her. Thank you, Betty. See you next week, everybody. Thank you. We'll see you next week on Cats and Bolts. Got him.